Today's video starts on page 20 in your packet. Problem of the day. What did Olga's uncle give her for cold feet? Do each exercise mentally. Write your answer and then mark it in the answer columns. For each set of exercises, there is one extra answer. Write the answer of this answer in the corresponding box at the right. So what did Olga's uncle give her for cold feet? 100% of 40 is all of 40, so that equals 40. That's B, cross that off. 50% of 40, that's half, so that's 20. That's J. And 10% of 40, that's 4. Divide by 10, right? So that's P. Notice, you don't have to write the equal sign, but I'm writing 40, 20, and 4, crossing them off, and then the answer that's left over, the letter that's left over, is E. So number 1 is an E. So I did the first one for you. Please complete the other 9 problems exactly how I did it. Thank you. And let's go on. Estimating with percents is today's lesson. The objective is to learn how to estimate percents. Some vocabulary. What does estimate mean? An answer that is close to the exact answer and is found by rounding or other method, by using mental math or doing something not on paper and pencil. An estimation is something that you can do quick in your head mentally by rounding or using what is called compatible numbers. Numbers that are close to the given numbers that make an estimation or mental calculation easier. So for instance, if I'm asked, what's 98 divided by 4? I would say, I would do 100 divided by 4. Those are compatible numbers. I know my answer is going to be somewhere around 25 because 4 does go into 100. Or use benchmarks. Benchmarks are common numbers that serves as points of reference. For instance, I know 1/4 is 25%. I know that 1/2 is 50%. I know that 78 is close to 80. You can use benchmarks. You can use fractional benchmarks or percent benchmarks. So example number 1. Estimate 21% of 66. Well, that's pretty darn close to 20%. So 20% is 1/5. So I'm going to round my percent to, or change it to 20%. So using compatible numbers, I would say, 1/5, here's my percent. And then I'm going to round my 66 to a number 5 that goes into is 65. So I could get that answer as 13. Because yes, 5 goes into 65 13 times. So 66 would be, as a compatible number, would go to 65. So that's an example of using compatible numbers. 36% of 120. Well, I could use the compatible numbers. 36% is pretty close to the common 33 1/3%. Which I know is equivalent to 1/3. So using compatible numbers, I would say, 1/3 of 120. Well, 3 does go into 120 very easily, so I don't have to change the 120. And yes, that goes in there 4 times, so the answer is 40. I could also say, well, 36%, well, I could round that up to 40% and say 4/10 for that 36%. So here's another compatible numbers way. And I could do 4/10 times 120. And that would be 4 times 12, which would be 48. So I could estimate that 36% of 120 as 40 or 48. Both would be about the same. So it's about 40, 48. Another way I could do it is I could break it. There's another way. I could break my 36% into 2 benchmarks. Well, 36% is awfully close to 35%. Well, I could split that up into 25% and 10%. This is the longer way of doing it. So 25%, that's a fourth of 20. One fourth times 120, that would give me 30, right? And the 10% I know is the same thing as like dividing by 10, right? A tenth, so I can move that back one. That would be 12. So this estimate would be about 42. So I'm getting 40, 48, and 42 as estimates. We all estimate a little bit differently. How we round or think, it can be a little bit different. It's not an exact answer. So let's go on to the next page, practice some more of this. In problem solving, Maria took her mother out to lunch for her birthday. The total cost of their food, drinks, and dessert was $20.15. If the sales tax is 7% and Maria wants to leave a 7% tip, about how much should she pay? Okay, well, 7% tax plus the 15%, right? That's about 22%. So I'm going to figure out what's my total percent here. That's about 22%. Well, I could either do that as 20% or 25%. I could go down a little bit and say 20%, which is the 1/5, or I could go up a little bit and say maybe the service was really good and I'm going to go up to 25%. That would be 1/4. 1/5 is a little bit closer. The money is about $20, right? So a fifth times 20, that would equal $4. She should estimate for tip and tax. And a fourth times 20, that would be, if service was really good, would be $5 for tax and tip. So Maria should pay for her lunch. Let's say the service was really good, so they want to add the $5. So she should pay $25.15. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, the answer $24.15 would also be okay. A printing company has determined that approximately 6% of the books it prints has some errors in it. Wow. Out of a printing run of 2,050 books, the production manager estimates that there are 250 books that have errors in it. Estimate to see if the manager's number is reasonable. Well, 6%, I would say, that's about 5%. So I would change that to about 5%. That's an easy number to do. That's 1/20th. I know that equals 1/20th. So 2,050 books, I'm going to go down to 2,000 because that's a compatible number with 20, right? So 1/20th of 2,000, well, I know that 20 goes in there. So I would get that 20 goes into the 20 here. 1 plus those 2 zeros would be 100. I would get that there would be about 100 books that would have errors in it. Yeah, his estimate's way too high. Even if I went to 2,100, it would still not go up to 250. He's thinking more like 250, even 10%. Even if I just did 10%, if you went way up to 10%, that would be 205 books. Oh, his estimate's way too big. No, this is estimate to see if the manager's number is reasonable. No, not reasonable. It's too high. My estimates at 6% or 5% is 100. At 10% would be 205. So way too high, too high. Estimate 75% of 195. Well, number 4, I would say that that's 3/4. And a compatible number with 4 would be 200. So you have to show what you're estimating, how you're rounding your numbers. So 4 goes into 250 times, so 3 times 50 would be 150. Number 5, 49%, well that's pretty close to 50%. I've changed that to 1/2. And I would change 19 to 20, and half of 20 is 10. Number 6, 40%. Well, that's not too bad. You could either do 4/10 or 2/5 times, and I would change that to 19 either to 220. That would give me, would go in there 22 times. That would give me 88. Or if I went 4/10 of 200, if I went down to 200, to the nearest hundred, 219 would be 200, and that would go in there 20 times, so 4 times 20 would be 80. So between 80 and 88 would be a good estimate for number 6. Number 7, a grade school has 407 students. Approximately 41% of the students walk to school. Estimate how many students walk to school. Well, 4/10 is what I would say for 41%. I would say 40%. And I would round my students to 400. Go down a little bit. So 4 times 40 would be 160. So I would say estimate how many students walk to school. About 160 students walk. And in class tomorrow, we're going to use estimation. So you and your partners are going to have to decide how are you going to estimate things. Agree on that tomorrow.